In the beginning, man looked up at the stars and saw gods. Today, he looks down at a screen and sees himself. But is it really him or a shadow? Carl Jung warned us long before the algorithms, before the constant buzz of notifications, before our minds were split into 1,000 digital fragments. He warned us of what happens when man loses his connection to the unconscious, when he turns away from the symbols that once whispered ancient truths and chases instead the illusion of control. This is not a critique of technology. It is not a sermon against progress. It is a reckoning, because what we have built is powerful, and what we've lost in return may be priceless. We live in a world where the psyche has been externalized, where what was once sacred and internal is now data, monetized and manipulated, reflected back to us in high definition. Our personas, Jung's term for the mask we wear in public, have multiplied into avatars, profiles, and curated timelines. But beneath them, the self, the real self, suffocates, unnoticed and starving. We are hyperconnected and utterly alone. So we must ask the ancient question in a modern tongue: who are you when no one is watching? Because the answer to that is the battleground of our time. Technology does not shape the mind, it mirrors it. And what we see in that mirror is often not beautiful. But it is true. Jung believed that the psyche seeks balance, that what we repress will return, that the unconscious left unintegrated will rule our lives from the shadows, and we will call it fate. The scrolling, the comparing, the dopamine-driven chasing of likes and validation. This is not just distraction, it is avoidance. It is the refusal to confront what Jung called the shadow, the parts of ourselves we deny, suppress, or fear. And here is the truth most are too afraid to speak. Your greatest enemy is not technology. It is yourself, untamed, unchecked, unknown. We carry a war within us, between our higher self and our hungry ego, between the sacred silence of the soul and the screaming noise of the world. And the world is very loud right now. So loud we forget what our own voice sounds like. But you are not here to obey the noise. You are here to wake up. We once believed in heroes, in gods, in fates written in stars. Today, we believe in trends, algorithms, and brands. The myths have changed, but the longing remains. Jung knew this. He understood that mythology wasn't superstition, it was soul language. Symbols, dreams, and stories were how the unconscious spoke to us. Now, the modern myth lives in pixels. It is streamed, swiped, and sold to the highest bidder. But beneath it, the archetypes remain. The warrior, the sage, the orphan, the ruler. They are alive within you, waiting to be remembered. Not clicked or copied, but lived. The story of your psyche is not a flat narrative for public consumption. It is a labyrinth, a deep and winding path that technology cannot walk for you. To believe in yourself is not just a slogan. It is the rebellion of the century. Because self-belief, true belief, must be rooted in knowing. In self-knowledge, you cannot know yourself if you never face yourself. So stop chasing borrowed myths. Write your own. Carl Jung once said, "Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart." But we are trained to look everywhere except within. Our attention is sold by the second. Our time is devoured by the minute. Our lives pass in the blur of artificial urgency. And in that blur, we forget. We forget the stillness. We forget that clarity is not found by speeding up. It is found by stopping. When was the last time you sat in silence and listened? Not to a podcast, not to a playlist, but to the voice beneath the surface, the one that does not shout, but knows. The voice that says, "This is who you are. This is what you must do." That voice lives in all of us, but it is drowned by distraction, starved by convenience. And clarity, real clarity, must be earned. It is the reward of those brave enough to turn inward, Do not fear the silence. Fear what you'll miss if you never enter it. Vision is not about what's trending. It's about what transcends. Jung believed in individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. Not who society tells you to be, not who your followers expect, but who your soul has been whispering about since the beginning. You will not find your destiny in the Explore feed. You will not become who you're meant to be by copying those who are already lost. You must see beyond the screen. You must close your eyes. To open your mind, your vision is the compass of your soul. It is not a 5-year plan. It is a calling. And in a world obsessed with immediacy, nothing is more dangerous than a man with long-term vision. So dare to imagine what others ignore. Dare to walk toward the unseen. Because vision is not what you look at, it's what pulls you forward. You don't find purpose by waiting. You don't stumble into it like a coin on the sidewalk. Purpose is not handed to you by society, not found in some self-help, and it damn sure doesn't arrive by accident. You forge it in fire, in solitude, in brutal honesty. Carl Jung called it the process of becoming whole, of uniting all aspects of your psyche into one integrated being. And make no mistake, this path is not comfortable. It is not safe. Because true purpose demands confrontation with your fear, with your past, with the small, timid voice inside that says, you can't, but you must, because the alternative is spiritual starvation, the kind that eats away at you slowly, the kind that no amount of likes or followers will ever cure. You already know the truth, don't you? You've felt it, the quiet ache when you redoing work that doesn't matter, chasing goals that aren't yours, living a life that feels like a mask. But that ache, that's not weakness. That's your purpose knocking, asking if you're ready to remember who you are. Because when you align with that inner calling, when you stop pretending and start becoming, something ancient awakens inside you. Something fierce, something unstoppable. But purpose without discipline is just daydreaming with better branding. And discipline, it's the hammer that shatters excuses, the sword that cuts through your own nonsense. It's not sexy, it's not fun, and it rarely gets applause, but it is the foundation of every meaningful life that has ever been lived. And don't confuse it with motivation. Motivation is fickle. It's a spark. Discipline is the flame you keep alive long after the crowd is gone. You build it 1 hour at a time, one early morning, one hard decision, one promise kept in private when nobody's watching. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Discipline is how you take the reins back, how you stop being ruled by impulse and start being guided by intention. Because every time you choose to show up, when it's hard, when it's boring, when it's lonely, you chip away at the false self and carve something real. And real is rare. Real is power. And once you have purpose, once you've tasted the truth of discipline, there's only one thing left to do: move, act. Because thoughts without action are ghosts. They haunt you, echoing what could have been. You think you need more clarity. You don't. You need more courage. You think you need more time. You don't. You need more fire. Action is the only way forward, and not perfect action. Not flawless execution, just movement. You learn by doing. You become by doing. Jung didn't theorize endlessly. He faced the abyss of his own psyche, walked through the darkness, and documented what he found. You must do the same. Face the digital fog. Step into the unknown and take responsibility for your mind. Because nobody is coming to do it for you. Can scroll for hours looking for permission, waiting for the right sign, the right quote, the right algorithmic nudge. But at some point, you have to decide. Decide that your life matters more than your comfort. That your growth is worth the discomfort. That your soul is louder than the noise. And in the spaces where the noise fades, where the screen dims and you finally act not for attention, not for applause, but because your spirit demands it. Something changes, something shifts. You stop reacting, you start creating. You stop existing in borrowed fragments and start moving as one whole unified force. And that, that is power. The power that can't be bought. The power that can't be faked. The power of becoming who you were always meant to be. You don't find purpose by waiting. You don't stumble into it like a coin on the sidewalk. Purpose is not handed to you by society, not found in some self-help, and it damn sure doesn't arrive by accident. You forge it in fire, in solitude, in brutal honesty. Carl Jung called it the process of becoming whole, of uniting all aspects of your psyche into one integrated being. And make no mistake, this path is not comfortable. It is not safe, because true purpose demands confrontation. With your fear, with your past, with the small, timid voice inside that says, you can't, but you must, because the alternative is spiritual starvation. The kind that eats away at you slowly. The kind that no amount of likes or followers will ever cure. You already know the truth, don't you? You've felt it, the quiet ache when you're redoing work that doesn't matter, chasing goals that aren't yours, living a life that feels like a mask. But that ache, that's not weakness. That's your purpose knocking, asking if you're ready to remember who you are. Because when you align with that inner calling, when you stop pretending and start becoming, something ancient awakens inside you. Something fierce, something unstoppable. But purpose without discipline is just daydreaming with better branding. And discipline, it's the hammer that shatters excuses. The sword that cuts through your own nonsense. It's not sexy, it's not fun, and it rarely gets applause. But it is the foundation of every meaningful life that has ever been lived. And don't confuse it with motivation. Motivation is fickle. It's a spark. Discipline is the flame you keep alive long after the crowd is gone. You build it 1 hour at a time, one early morning, one hard decision, one promise kept in private when nobody's watching. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Discipline is how you take the reins back, how you stop being ruled by impulse and start being guided by intention. Because every time you choose to show up when it's hard, when it's boring, when it's lonely, you chip away at the false self and carve something real. And real is rare. Real is power. And once you have purpose, once you've tasted the truth of discipline, there's only one thing left to do. Move, act. Because thoughts without action are ghosts. They haunt you, echoing what could have been. You think you need more clarity? You don't. You need more courage. You think you need more time. You don't. You need more fire. Action is the only way forward. And not perfect action, not flawless execution, just movement. You learn by doing. You become by doing. Jung didn't theorize endlessly. He faced the abyss of his own psyche, walked through the darkness and documented what he found. You must do the same. Face the digital fog. Step into the unknown and take responsibility for your mind. Because nobody is coming to do it for you. You can scroll for hours, looking for permission, waiting for the right sign, the right quote, the right algorithmic nudge, but at some point, you have to decide. Decide that your life matters more than your comfort, that your growth is worth the discomfort, that your soul is louder than the noise. And in the spaces where the noise fades, where the screen dims, and you finally act not for attention, not for applause, but because your spirit demands it, something changes, something shifts. You stop reacting, you start creating. You stop existing in borrowed fragments and start moving as one whole unified force. And that, that is power. The power that can't be bought. The power that can't be faked. The power of becoming who you were always meant to be. And when you begin to walk with purpose, guided by inner clarity and armed with disciplined action, something inside you starts to soften, not weaken, but deepen. Because now, even as you move forward like a force of nature, you begin to remember. You remember that every breath is borrowed, that every heartbeat is a gift, that even this moment, this painful, beautiful, uncertain now, is yours. And that remembering births gratitude. Not the hollow kind sold in coffee mugs and platitudes, but the kind forged in fire. The kind that sees beauty in the struggle and meaning in the mess. Gratitude that isn't about being comfortable, it's about being conscious. Jung knew this. He knew that when we stop blaming the world and start honoring the mystery of our own lives, we tap into a deeper current. A soul current. One that says, I'm not owed anything. And yet, I have everything I need to begin. And that gratitude becomes your grounding. Because the world is chaos. It moves too fast. It changes its mind. One day you're loved, the next you're forgotten. One day the algorithm favors you. The next, you're invisible. If you tie your identity to it, you'll be dragged like a leaf in the wind. But if you root yourself in what doesn't change your truth, your inner vision, your self-awareness, then the chaos becomes your training ground. That's adaptability. It's not passive acceptance. It's active transformation. You bend, but you don't break. You pivot, but you never lose your axis. Jung taught us that the psyche evolves, that it is meant to transform. And when you accept that the only constant is change, you stop resisting it, you use it. You harness disruption. You turn pressure into presence. Because what breaks others builds you. What confuses others clarifies you. Adaptability, docent T, mean you lose yourself. It means you find new versions of yourself hidden inside adversity. But to adapt is not enough, because life will not simply test you with change. It will crush you, it will bring you to your knees. It will break your plans, shatter your ego, silence your confidence, and dare you to get back up. And that is where resilience is born, not in theory, not in preparation, but in the wreckage. Jung said, "No tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell." Understand that, you will fall. You will fail. You will face moments so dark, you will wonder if the light was ever real. And in those moments, you will have two choices: collapse into the void, or walk through it. And if you keep moving when the path disappears, if you keep breathing when your chest feels like stone, if you keep showing up even when your faith is gone, that S where your real self is waiting, not the curated self, not the version others admire, but the one forged in silence, in scars, in sacred defiance. Because resilience is not about bouncing back. It's about rising different, stronger, wiser, hungrier, and more alive than ever before. You won't recognize the old version of you. The one who needed validation. The one who feared being seen. The one who waited for the world to choose them. That version is gone. Burned away, and what remains is unshakable. And now, with resilience carved into your bones and the ashes of your old self scattered behind you, something sacred begins to take root. Learning. Not the kind fed to you by institutions or repeated like doctrine, but the kind earned through fire. The kind that Jung devoted his life to. Studying not just facts, but symbols, dreams, the deep logic of the soul. Real learning isn't memorizing, it's remembering. Remembering what you already knew before the world told you who to be. Remembering the language of the unconscious, the pull of intuition. The symbols that rise in your dreams, not to confuse you, but to guide you. In a world of endless information, your salvation will come not from knowing more, but from knowing yourself more deeply. So look inward. Study the patterns that bind you. Study the fears that stop you. Study the reactions that betray your deepest wounds. Because all of them, every doubt, every impulse, every self-sabotaging loop is a lesson wrapped in shadow, waiting to be brought into light. This is what Jung meant when he said the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And you don't become by addition, you become by integration. By bringing together the fragments, by uniting your conscious with the unconscious, your ego with your essence, your mind with your myth. Technology may have fragmented our attention, but that is all the more reason to become whole within. Because the world outside is splintered, but you don't have to be. This is the final phase of the journey, not a finish line, but a return. A return to what was always there beneath the noise. You are not your profile. You are not your follower count. You are not your performance metrics or your productivity tracker. You are a soul with ancient roots carrying symbols older than time, gifted with the power to create, to choose, to wake up. So now you stand here, not just informed, not just inspired, but aware. Aware that you can no longer live asleep. Aware that your life is not a simulation, it is a story, and the pen is in your hands. Carl Jung walked through the fires of his mind and came back bearing maps. Not to give you answers, but to show you how to walk into your own unknown, to stop fearing the dark and start listening to it, because that's where the treasure lives. That's where the self, the real you, has been waiting all along. So do not look away. Do not return to sleep. There is more within you than this world has told you. More than even you have dared to believe. You are myth. You are movement. You are memory. And now, you are awake. Thank you for watching.